So now we're on lesson 4, and we're going to put what we've done all together now. We've learned how to find trig ratios for an angle using our calculator, and we've learned the definitions of all 3 ratios. So in lesson 4, we find missing side lengths. So when I see these questions, the first thing I would do is label my triangle according to whatever angle I'm given. So in this case, I am given 41. I label my angle according to that one. The hypotenuse is the longest side, the opposite, and the adjacent. Now this question says use the sine ratio. So I know I'm going to be using sine. I know that sine of any angle theta, if it's SOHCAHTOA, it's opposite over the hypotenuse. So now I write in what I know. I know my angle theta is 41, so sine 41. The opposite is x. The hypotenuse is 16.42. This is my next step. I punch in sine 41 on my calculator, just like the last lesson. And I always do this to 4 decimal places. Okay? Now that equals, actually, if I round it, it should be 6.1, equals x over 16.42. At this point, we do something called cross multiplication. These 2 numbers get multiplied together. 0.6561 multiplied by 16.42. We get x equals 10.77. Right, let's do our next example. Use the cosine ratio to determine the value of x. So we're using cosine. Cosine comes from ca. So cos of any angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So my angle that I have is 15. I label it according to 15. That's my hypotenuse. That one's the opposite. That one's the adjacent. So my theta is 15. The adjacent is x. The hypotenuse is 12. This is what I start with. And again, I always want 4 decimal places if I can. So cos of 15 is 0.9659. That equals x over 12. Now these 2 go together. And you do that with a multiplying. So 0.9659 multiplied by 12. X equals 11.59 roughly if I round. One more example. It says use the tangent ratio to determine the value of x. Well, tan comes from TOA. So tan of any angle is the opposite over the adjacent. So now I go to my triangle. 51 is my angle. That's the hypotenuse. That's the opposite. And 4 is my adjacent. So my theta becomes 51. The opposite is x. The adjacent is 4. Again, I always start here to 4 decimal places. So I grab my calculator, I punch in tan of 51. It is 1.2349 if I round, x over 4. Again, these guys go together through a multiply. So 4 multiplied by 1.2349. X equals 4.94 if I round. So now that is lesson 4. You should now work through practice 4 in your practice problems.